Hi there, I'm Elaine Becker. Um, this is our video assignment for chapter 2 in our cognitive psychology class. We read a chapter about the brain and then like a super brief overview on the cellular level and then down to the functions of the individual lobes. On a cellular level, I had a really hard time understanding. It's difficult for me to keep track of the functions that the axons and the dendrites and the dendritic spines do. But I thought one of the things that we read was about the synapses, the way that the cells communicate with each other. And it said that we have 150 trillion synapses available in the human brain, and that was more than or potentially more than the amount of elementary particles in the known universe. And I wondered what that meant exactly for clarification, because I thought that was a really big number, kind of unfathomable. And so when I went searching to figure out like how many elementary particles are in the known universe, and it was a lot more than 150 trillion, kind of an unfathomable number. So then I wondered what the 150 trillion came from. Is that a total possible in a lifetime, or is that what's happening at once, in which case like that would be a number that we could never be able to figure out, like the elementary particles in the universe. And all, but also, is that as an adult or as a child, and does that change? Do the amount of synapses change during the process of neural pruning? So we read about neural pruning, which is the process of chopping away the neurons that we don't really use. So neural pruning takes place over adolescence, and it's kind of the brain's way of cutting out the neurons that we're not using. It seems that we're born with twice as many neurons as we end up with as an adult. So like we're wired for everything. And then during adolescence, over the time span of adolescence, we're cutting away the things that we don't use, which makes a lot of sense to like reroute the resources to the neurons that we do use. So I wondered if the amount of synapses changes based on the amount of neurons that we had. So if that number was an adult or a child. I got really into the idea of neural pruning, and I went kind of down a rabbit hole, and I came across a video with Dan Siegel, who's one of my like favorites. I've read many of his books, and he was talking about the way that neural pruning works as a way to make our brains more efficient as humans, which makes sense. He separated the time period in which it exists, that it starts happening during adolescence and that overlaps with puberty, but that they're not necessarily the same thing, that neural pruning is not a part of puberty. I thought it was really interesting that there can be dysfunction in neural pruning, and that the excessive pruning would amount to lower neurons and result in mental health disorders like schizophrenia, and that not pruning enough would lead to extra neurons, which is seen in disorders like autism and epilepsy, which causes a lot of confusion and disorientation. And I thought that was really fascinating. So I went down a little rabbit hole there. So the chapter was really interesting. This video format is fascinating and different, and I'm excited to see how it works out for us.